So, welcome to today's episode, and we have a very special guest here. Many of you probably know Alex if you've been more following my page for a while, or you may just know Alex alone anyway. So, she's Life with Pots on Instagram. If you don't already follow her, follow her. But Alex, to begin with, so she's a client of mine. She's been struggling with POTS for a number of years now. Do you want to give a little bit of a background to where you started and your history?
So I was diagnosed with POTS when I was 19. I had just gone to university after finishing my A-levels. I'd got COVID within my first week of being at uni, and things just kind of went downhill from there, really. Tried to get straight back into netball, which was my sport, what I was doing beforehand, competing internationally for the Isle of Man team. So got COVID, went straight back into netball training, and it just wasn't grooving the way it used to. Just heart rate was crazy, no energy, and like that feeling of your lungs are on fire, and yeah, it wasn't great. So I decided to go back home to the Isle of Man with the COVID lockdown that was happening in the UK, and had to drop out of uni basically because things just got worse from there on. So COVID restrictions were different in the Isle of Man, so I could actually keep playing netball. And that was kind of how I realised that something was wrong in the first place, getting back in to exercise after COVID restrictions. So I was going back into my netball training. I'd just got an Apple Watch. It's a funny story. And went out for a run to get my fitness back up, and it just felt terrible. Checked my new fancy watch, and my heart rate was 204, which
Just normal, completely normal.
I
Not.
thought my watch was broken because I didn't think that was humanly possible. So yeah, kept pushing through it. So I was like, I'm an athlete, I can do
fine.
this, I'm fine. I've never had anything wrong before, and that was basically just a cycle that carried on for a number of months until I couldn't do any more basically, and ended up in A&E and was told I had a potassium deficiency and that I was fine. So yeah, I got given potassium supplements and sent on my way basically. And before that, my symptoms had only been when I was exercising. So I would exercise, my heart rate would come back down afterwards. I felt okay-ish.
Yeah.
I'd just had a virus, I'd had COVID, didn't think anything of it. Until after the potassium supplements for 2 weeks, and things obviously didn't get better, and then my symptoms were all the time. So if I was walking up the stairs or standing up, and yeah, got worse and worse. Multiple A&E admissions with the same thing, and from there referred on to a cardiologist. In the Isle of Man, there's one hospital and one cardiologist for 80,000 people. So I was on a waiting list for a really long time, and was fortunate enough to be able to go private with my appointment. So I ended up, that got sped up, and straight away walking into that appointment, he said, "You've got POTS, 100%. Like,
which doctor was that?
That was the cardiologist on the Isle of Man. I forget his name now, he's since retired. But I walked into that appointment and straight away he was like, "You've got POTS, it's after COVID, you've got POTS, like 100%. And yeah, that was that, but no information. He said, "You have POTS, I'm going to prescribe you XYZ medication, and I'm confident you'll be okay." And that was it. Like, I didn't even know what POTS stood for. I didn't know how to manage it. I didn't know what it meant or anything. So that was all I was sent away with, really, and left to do my own research.
So difficult. It's so difficult. I had a very similar situation with my diagnosis. It's like years of searching for answers, and then I just walked into this one cardiologist's office, and he was like, "You've got POTS." He was like, "You've given me a list of all the symptoms of POTS." He was like, "You have POTS. There's no two ways about it." And then of course it was confirmed, and it was very similar to you. But he didn't specialize in it, but he knew of it, so he was like, "I'm kind of stuck." He was like, I know you've got it. I can help so far, but again, there was such, this is like 2015, 2016 when I was actually diagnosed. I just found a good sniff somewhere. So yeah, there was even less information out there. Like, I had no idea where to look. So it's very overwhelming in that situation.
I was lucky with the cardiologist that I did end up with. Whilst he knew what it was straight away and he put me on the medication, he was quite honest with me, like
Yeah.
this isn't my field, so
Yeah.
he could then refer me on to another specialist, to Dr. Gall, who I think you've seen
Yeah.
as well. So
Yeah.
that made such a massive difference.
Good.
But
Yeah.
now, for people to have that information and the education to end up at somebody as specialist as him is so rare, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the few actual specialists, the pot specialists in the UK at least, are so busy that trying to actually get in, and especially on the NHS, some of them are years waiting list. It's ridiculous. And there are so few actual POTS specialists. And I think something that I found as well is, while off the back of COVID, like, so many more people are aware of POTS. Like, a lot more doctors know it, a lot more doctors understand it, but they don't actually understand it. Like, they know what it is, but they almost simplify it, and it's not simple. It can't be simple. So that's where I've seen so many people have come to me and they're just like, oh, I was just told to go and drink more water, eat more salt, and just told to get on with it. And it's just like,
exactly,
and that was all they were given. And then they're just sent off by their GP, and that's just a basic GP with like not really any other tests, not any other sort of information. It's scary from that perspective, where people think that they know, but unfortunately a lot of people don't, and that's not anyone's fault. It's just there's still a long way to go, although there's a lot more awareness that has been brought to it.
100%.
But so when you first started with me, where would you kind of... So I remember Alec, we jumped on this call. She had just been off the back of a horrible flare, and she goes, oh, by the way, in 3 months' time, I'm going to be walking the parish walk, which is how many miles?
In total, it's 85 if you do the full thing. So obviously, I wasn't expecting to do that, but I was aiming for, it was 30 kilometres. So I think it's about just under 20 miles, I think. So having gone from, the way it had kind of come about was I'd got COVID again at Christmas time. And up until that point, I had been working with a PT, like an in-person PT back home, because I'd done some research and seen exercise can help with POTS. So I was like, okay, that's going to be my action plan, because I don't know what else to do. So I'd started working with him. I was getting a bit better, still not very well managed. The exercise wasn't really appropriate for the condition and things like that. And I got COVID again, and all progress I'd made up till that point, it disappeared. Because the COVID restrictions were so strict, I couldn't go out for a walk or anything, my nutrition wasn't managed, so everything just fell apart. Probably worse than when I was first diagnosed. My symptoms were definitely at an all-time low. That was when I got signed off work. I was bedbound during that period, like having to crawl around to move. And obviously with the physical health declining, like my mental health just plummeted as well.
So you just set a completely ridiculous goal.
Yeah, because I needed to pull myself out of it somehow. I wasn't working, I wasn't moving, I wasn't living really, going from what I had been to where I was. And I was like, no, I can't accept that. I need something crazy, something to work to. And I never expected that I would actually do it. It was kind of, I'll register, and if I get to this, even just the start line, great. If I never do one step of the parish walk, I mean, I tried, I've done the training, and mentally it pulled me out of a really dark place as well. So I think we jumped on a call with you, having been in a wheelchair during that flare up, and said, yeah, we have 12 weeks. Do you think you can do it?
But what I will say, and that is one thing that I see between people who are successful with improving their health and people who really, really struggle to see any progress, is that mindset and that determination. That sounds very cutthroat and harsh. I know a lot of people won't like to hear that, but it's being so driven. It's almost being so stubborn to be like, this is not how it's going to be. It's the refusal to accept that situation that your health has kind of put you in, and the willingness to do anything and put your all into everything to get yourself out of it.
And that's what it was for me. Like, when I was diagnosed, my mum had come into the appointment with me. I'd not been playing netball for a couple of months at that point, waiting to get diagnosed, because when I was in A&E, they had said to me, you're not allowed to do any exercise until we rule out a heart condition,
Yeah.
which I do understand, but also had they have been more educated about POTS and the symptoms I went in with were so typical of POTS. Like, now that I know what it is, if anybody had said that to me, I'd be like, that's obviously POTS, but they just didn't know, so they gave me the complete wrong information. And then that was when the deconditioning occurred, like during that period. So when I went into that appointment and I walked out with the diagnosis, like I'd said to my mum, I'm getting back to netball. I don't care how I do it. I'm doing it. And that was kind of the start of that mindset shift and getting home. And I wrote myself out a list of things.
I love this list. I've seen this list many times.
Yeah, I have it next to my bed still, so I see it like first thing every morning. But it sets me up for like such a good day, and I love it. So it was things I shouldn't be able to do with POTS, but will. And I had like dated it as well, and like, how old I was, and some of the things on it were what now are so simple that I can just do, and it was literally like walk to the toilet because I could not physically do that, or walk 5 kilometers, which like we've probably done today now easily.
Oh, easily. We did that in like half the walk this morning.
Like, another one was to be able to walk up the stairs at work. I was working in an office at the time, like on the 2nd floor, and every day I would have to get the lift. And these people have known me for years, and they knew me as like this athletic person. And the comments I would get, like, why? Oh, you're getting the lift again? Are you getting the lift again? It's only up a flight of stairs. And I was like, if you want to carry me or scoop me up when I pass out, that's fine. So they were like, you know, the more functional things, but then I'd put on the parish walk just as a crazy goal, like to go back to uni, to graduate, to get back to netball, and just things that at that time seemed so unachievable. But like you say, it was that stubbornness of, I always think if you write something down, you're more likely to do it anyway. So it was just that I have to do this. I will do this. I will find a way to do it. And the feeling of when I got to tick off like that first thing, it was like so emotional. It was the best feeling in the world.
I remember you sending me bits through, being like, and another one.
Yeah, I had it in front of me on the consultation call. And I was like, started off obviously that being the biggest one. I was like, by the way, I really want to play netball. I really want to run. I want to run a marathon.
You can imagine really flat Alex at the time, then with this list.
Yeah.
Like partway through the consultation call, like this list comes out being like, so by the way, this is what I want to achieve. And I was like, okay. Like,
I think the only thing I had ticked off at that point as well was, I can't even remember. I think it was probably to go to the toilet. I had like one thing ticked off. I don't think I'd walked a 5K at that point.
No.
And another one was to do 10,000 steps a day, and I hadn't done that until working with you.
Yeah. And then now I think we've ticked a lot of them off.
The only things left now, I think, are to graduate uni, which I'm in the
process
takes time,
of. Yeah.
So in the next year, and I want to be discharged from the POTS specialist.
Yeah.
I have an appointment booked for the coming months. So
that is very exciting.
I don't see why now he will keep me on. So hopefully. Yeah. And then I'm nearly done. And netball, obviously.
Joints have been another.
Yeah.
But we're working on that one.
Have been very common and things, but I'm probably more confident now than ever that I will get back to netball eventually. And if anything, I've made peace with the fact that it's a long process, whereas I wanted to get back to it as quickly as possible. But now I know I'm going to get back to it probably the strongest and fittest and healthiest I've ever been. Yeah. Like before POTS, I wasn't really going in the gym. Exactly. I wasn't working on strength,
nutrition, like
exactly.
You've got so much more knowledge.
So now. I'm confident I will get back to it. Probably a better player than I was before I left, and more appreciative of it as well. The fact I can do it rather than I've got netball tonight, I've got to go to training again. It's like I know I will enjoy that so much when I get back to it.
Exactly, and it makes you just appreciate it. It feels that even more special when you've had so much to overcome. Like I know that time where you get back and you play your first match again, like that's going to be such an emotional moment
I know, it
for
makes
you.
me feel, I
Like,
get
I
giddy
feel like
when I
that
think
because I
about
know
it.
how much it
And
means to
yeah,
you.
and even little things, like I would go to netball however many times a week. It was kind of just part of it. It was, no
Yeah,
one thought anything of it, but now it's going to be like, I know everyone's going to be behind me as well. Like my
yeah,
family are going to be so excited, and like, I don't know, it'll just be amazing.
it will be. So soon to come, and Alex is just in the process, about to finish second year of uni
Yes.
now. So on from that point, we've built back her strength. We've done a photo shoot.
Yeah. I
We've
did
done,
get to run for a little
yeah,
bit
you
as
did get to
well. I
run.
did
You did
manage
do
to
a
do a
couple of 5Ks,
5K.
yeah.
Yeah, so that was a huge thing
Yeah.
as well. And yeah, I think I finished my 5K and then that's when my knees gave in, but it doesn't matter. We got to do it. So.
We did, exactly. And that shows like your actual POTS fitness
Yeah.
is in the position that it needs to be.
Yeah. 100%.
But yeah, it's just, unfortunately, our joints just, sometimes they don't play ball, and that's okay too. But one of those things, but so exciting.
Yeah.
Anyway, we wanted to mention a little bit about social media and chronic illnesses because it's a challenging topic, I think, to say the least, with a lot of the support groups out there. There's a lot of negativity in social media in general, just in that kind of world around chronic illnesses, like long COVID, POTS. Like if you go in any of the POTS support groups, like 90% of the comments are negative. And then also, of course, Alex is very open. She's got her Life of POTS account on Instagram, which she's documented a lot of her journey. And I know I've had so many clients over the years who have seen your page, and lots of people know your page. So you've been very open and very transparent about the highs and the lows and the struggles that you've faced. So recently you've had a couple of different comments. I know. Do you want to talk a little bit about your experiences initially of social media and then kind of how it's perhaps changed?
When I was first diagnosed, like I said, I was so determined to get back to netball, and the first thing I did, because I'd never heard of POTS, like I said, and no one had ever gave me any information, and I thought, I don't even know anybody else out there living with this. So took to Instagram and other social media and started looking for other people that were in the same position, and it terrified me what I found. Everything was so negative, and I can see where people are coming from. It is at its worst so debilitating, it's isolating, it's lonely, it's awful. But I think if you feed into that mindset as well, you're never gonna find any good in it if you're not looking for it.
Yeah.
So I was looking for someone who'd maybe got back into exercise or just was living a normal life and working or going about their business, and I was very shocked by what I found and quite set back. And if anything, it made me think, am I actually worse off than I was? It kind of made my symptoms feel worse and that I should be doing less than I was actually capable of.
I was going to say, do you feel like it made you stop anything or question
100%,
anything
100%.
by just seeing this is how POTS should be?
I was seeing things, people saying, well, I have this symptom and I have this symptom, and I was like, well, I actually don't have that symptom, but they do, so I should.
Yeah, and you should avoid anything that could cause.
And there were so many things where people would be like, oh, do you want to go and do this? It might have been my friends, do you want to go out for a walk? And I was like, no, I can't do that. It's like, well, why? And I was like, because I have POTS. People with POTS can't go out for walks, or we can't do certain things. And if anything, it made me worse off by what I saw on social media. But I'd kind of gotten to a point where I was like, no, enough is enough. I can't keep seeing this and feeling this way. There's nobody positive out there, or at the time I hadn't found that in anybody else. And I was like, okay, I need to take it upon myself and find something good in this. And I'm very, I don't know, I like to be quite bright and positive, and I want to find the good in situations. And I was like, if I'm going to live with this illness, I'm 19, I've just been diagnosed, if I'm going to have this for the rest of my life, I'm not prepared to give up a good quality of life. So kind of, it's like
that stubbornness again.
Yeah. Yes, 100%. But it's worked for me,
It's
and
got
I've
you
kind
far.
of needed that. So I kind of took it upon myself, started posting on this new account. I was posting a little bit on my personal account anyway, just kind of like information and facts for people, because I didn't know how to tell anybody, like, oh, I have this condition and I'm different now. I can't do all the same things I used to do, or I need to do them in a different way now. And so I thought, okay, what's the worst that's going to happen? Either no one will follow it, no one will care, and that'll be that. It doesn't matter. I may as well give it a go. And it was more a place for me to look back on. Like now, I'm so glad I did it, because it's been 2 years and I can look back and I see on those days that I thought this is my life forever, and that's not the case at all. So it was more personally for me anyway, to like a place just to share. I like to say, don't I, like the good, the bad, and the ugly, and there's plenty of all of those. So it's kind of a place to look back on that, and the bad days have got better, and the good days have happened. So
exactly. And I think that's something that I'm always sad. I was saying to you earlier, I was like, I'm always sad that I didn't document my journey, but I was going through such a terrible year for so many different reasons all at the same time, and was having a terrible time in school at the time. And I was just afraid of social media at that point. And I was like, I just felt judged. I felt uncomfortable. And I didn't even feel like I could create a space.
It is so vulnerable, though, to put yourself in that position. And when you are that ill, that's like what we were saying, wasn't it? You don't think, oh, I'm just going to take a picture of this. You just think, I feel awful. I don't even want to look at my phone. But it is so vulnerable. And that's what I was so terrified of how are people going to perceive this. And from what I had seen on social media, people were getting comments about, POTS isn't real, you're making this up, you're on benefits and all sorts, you're trying to get off school, off work. So I was really like terrified going into it, because I thought, if somebody was to say that to me, I don't know how I would be able to handle it. And I was really surprised. I was like, over the last 3 years since I've had POTS, I've only been met with positivity and support. And I know maybe that's not the experience for everyone, but I've been so lucky. Like, my friends really go out of their way to educate themselves and take it upon themselves to make accommodations for me. And it was the same on social media. It was just so much love. Which obviously then, until recently, I did get a couple of comments which then really took me back, because I've never had anything like that before. But it's only now, since my health has actually improved, that's now when the hate comments are coming in. So.
Yeah. And this is something that I was saying to you as well, is because I feel like a lot of people with POTS, especially at their worst, they struggle to relate to me.
Yeah.
And it's really hard. I don't want to make myself feel worse, as in like put myself and put this false picture of, oh, it's so terrible on my page, when the reality is my POTS doesn't really affect me at all these days. And it's very hard to try to be relatable to people when I feel so far from that point and put that across on social media. But that doesn't mean I haven't been there. And it's because people see little snapshots on social media. I think it's very hard for someone to see the whole picture, like we were saying as well with my health. Like, my stomach struggles still, like that is such a huge part of my day-to-day life. Like, my stomach's being pretty damn awful at the moment. But people don't see a lot of that side of things. Although my POTS doesn't affect me, I've had all these other issues, and it's one thing or, but people only see kind of like these little pictures, and they just don't, it's hard to comprehend like the overall view of it all, I guess you could say. And with you, like, yours came from, like, you were so open about all the struggles, you were so open about using mobility aids, you were so open about the hospital appointments, the tears, the upset, like the mental struggles that you went through. And then I think when people, like, there was such a shift in your page, you were going to concerts, you were going out on nights out, like, and this whole switch happened, and then you suddenly had some of these messages through. And do you want to kind of give a brief overview, kind of?
Yeah, and again, for the most part, they are lovely, but I think in a sea of lovely comments, you're only going to notice the bad ones, aren't you? Anyway, they're the ones that kind of sit with you. So the first one was something along the lines of, like, why is your page still about POTS? Like, from what I can see, you don't have POTS, and if you have ever had it, it can't have been that bad. How does it affect your quality of life? And it's almost painting a false picture to people that POTS can look like this, because for the most part it's terrible, which I think is just such a shame that anybody would have that mindset, because that's the exact point of the page, was when I was that person and I was looking at people's accounts and it was so negative. And I just thought, why would you not want to know that you could live that life, that you could go to the concerts, that you could go out to the restaurants, or go out with your friends? So that was kind of the first one, which I queried even whether I was going to reply to it. I thought it's not worth my time. I know in myself why I'm doing this. And from the majority of the comments that I get and the messages I get, it is lovely, and people tell me how much they appreciate it, and people will ask
grateful
for
to find your
advice,
page,
which again, I'm not exactly qualified to give, but I can share my lived experiences and what has helped and what hasn't and things. So whether right or wrong, in a bit of a rage, I did reply. I thought I'd done it quite nicely, kind of explained I do still have POTS, and that's the point of why I'm sharing this, because I'm sharing the good and the bad and the ugly, and this part of my journey is good. I've had the bad, I've had the ugly, like I deserve a little bit of good.
And it's not been an easy journey by any means. Like, we've had a lot of ups and downs for even us, the time of us working together, and it's not something that just happens overnight. Like, Alex is putting consistent hard work to get her health to where she is. She was on it with all of her nutrition. Every time she had a question, she had asked me. And, we built a very close relationship because Alex was so on it all the time. But it's those, I always say it's the people who are so on it that always get the best results as well, because they're wanting to learn, they're unsure about something, they reach out straight away. And we tweaked all your nutrition, we looked at your digestion.
And it took months as well. Like, I remember saying to my boyfriend, like, oh, this is amazing, I found this girl, she's gonna help me. And then when the information about the nutrition come through, my mind was blown. I was like, I'm never gonna get, and I said it to you, I was like, I'm never gonna get this right. You're like, it's day one.
It's like, just slow down.
I haven't thought about
one step.
Day 100 or day 300. Like, it's literally day one. You have time to get this right. But I think that's kind of my issue, is I put so much pressure on myself, but that's kind of what's helped me. It's, if anything, it's been an advantage, but it definitely was a long process. And I remember I used to almost feel like discouraged when you would look through my food diary and say, like, oh, maybe you could just tweak this a little bit, this might help you in this element. And I was like, oh my god, I'm doing it wrong, I'm never gonna get it. And now having that relationship and feeling comfortable to be like, I'm so overwhelmed, I don't know what to do. Now it is literally second nature. When I don't even think about it. It's just like fat, protein, carb, make sure it's balanced, go about your business. Where now
exactly,
now,
it's always like,
you can be like, oh, I trust you not to track, because
I know that
you know the foundations now, you have this.
Exactly. And that's the thing, it's not something that just happens overnight. You don't learn these skills, and like at the beginning, like, every single change in your normal routine is a stressor. Whether it's going to have the best life-changing results or not, it's still a stressor that you're trying to adapt to this new routine. When you're feeling so awful, like, it's trying to wrap your head around anything is hard. And that's why we say it's progress over perfection, but you continually put in the progress, and that, like, you put in the hard work to reap the benefits of the progress, and that's what got you to where you are with it all. And I think it's so hard when you have some of these negative comments come through, because I find it really upsetting in the chronic illness community, because it's like, all the really big chronic illness pages are really kind of quite negative for the most part. And it's great. I love sometimes going through some of these pages, and like, they add humour to some of the really crap situations that you have to go through when you've got a chronic illness. And I love it. It's great. I have a good laugh. But there are so few pages that are actually dedicated to people with chronic illnesses that are positive and that are actually really, really supportive and like really well loved by the community. It's a lot of the negative ones that really reaffirm people's beliefs of the fact that where they are right now, that it's not going to get better. Because I was there once, that I didn't feel like things would get better. I'm sure you doubted
100.
things are going to get
Still
better.
now, I still think it's been 3 years since I last played netball. Every single day I think, am I going to do it? And that's just the negative mindset. It's like the mindset is so important, and I just have to snap myself out of it every day. Like, I will. It's just a slow process. I'm going to have this illness for the rest of my life. What's the rush? Like, I would rather get there and stay there than rush my way there and lose it all again.
Exactly. And I think it truly is that mindset that I see really distinguish the people who, as I said at the start, make the progress and the people who don't. And it's just such a shame that people, and I find it so upsetting that people in the chronic illness community, or just in human nature at all, feel like they have to put other people down who are painting a false picture of the chronic illness, because I find it so sad that they think it's so unrealistic that that's even possible with the condition, because there's not enough information out there to show people that it is possible. And that's what I find so hard in working with so many people with chronic illnesses. It's like you have to even convince them that it's possible to get better, because there's so few people who even talk about the fact that it is. And that's what I really want to spread so much more awareness around, and so much more positivity around. And it is just so sad that people are so believe in all these support groups as well, that it can never get better.
The support groups,
they're so everyone is so convinced, and in these support groups they're convincing each other more. The support
groups are something else. Like, my mum, bless her, she had started joining like parents of kids with long COVID or POTS and things, because obviously it's all new to her. She didn't know what to do. And the things she would see in there, and she basically had to end up leaving them because they were so negative. And she was then convinced, like, I was going to get worse, I was going to die, and it was just, it was so unrealistic. And then she would kind of start advocating for me and saying, well, actually, my daughter's doing this, she's getting... I think there's a lot of stigma around the word getting better because it's chronic. We're not better. We're just managing.
Where you're at.
We're managing, and we're always going to be managing. And she was kind of met with, oh, well, then she didn't have it. And it's like,
it can't have been that bad.
But she did, and she was in a wheelchair, and this and that and the other. And the support groups, I think, are really, really negative.
So
and rather than people coming together to kind of celebrate the positives of chronic illness,
like,
because
how did you do it?
I think there are so many positives, and that's what I try and share on my page a lot. And again, it comes down to the mindset that chronic illness, whilst at its worst, was terrible, and I will never forget the terrible times, but I have this page now. I get to speak to so many people all over the world who I wouldn't have known of, and
we wouldn't be sat here.
Literally sitting here. All sorts of things, like everything now. I just think every day I feel really blessed. I'm really grateful. Like, we got to go on a gorgeous walk this morning. I wouldn't have been able to do that 3 years ago. And just to wake up and be grateful for what's in front of you. Like, you just don't realise how lucky you are until you don't have it. But it's the mindset, and that's kind of what I was so offended by and taken aback by this, like, negative message, was questioning, am I doing the right thing? Like, I was trying to be the person that I needed, and but at the end of the day, it's my page, it's for me, it's actually not for anybody else, it's purely for me. And then to question, am I doing something wrong? Am I doing more harm? Like, is that truly how people feel, despite all the positive messages? That one negative one was kind of enough to like, throw me off. A lot. And then the follow-up one that came was more
brutal, to say the least. I
don't even know how to describe it. Just saying, you're claiming that POTS is only caused through deconditioning. That's so insulting.
Which Alex has never claimed. Neither of us have ever claimed.
I think, how could I sit here and claim it's through deconditioning when I only found out I had POTS because I was playing netball, physically looking at my watch, going 194, 195, 196. I was like
204.
Yeah, 210 was my PB. So it's like, that was never my journey. And if you do look through my page, which they clearly hadn't gone further down to when it was bad, you would see that, like, that's not my journey, that's not my story, and that's not what I'm preaching.
Yeah.
But to kind of receive that message saying, if I ate what you ate and trained exactly what you did, I wouldn't be in the same position as you, which maybe you wouldn't be.
Yeah, because it is
But
so
if you
person dependent.
trained exercises that will work to your body, like how many times have you had to change my program because I've gone, that's not working, that makes me feel awful, or that doesn't feel good, that flares me up.
Same for your nutrition as well, like the amount of tweaks I've had to make. And that's why I work so closely with each person, because it is so different.
Yeah.
Like, two people can be eating completely different things but making brilliant progress, because it is so person dependent. And I just, like, it all comes back. I just find it really sad that is what the chronic illness community has really become. That it's just so ingrained that there's not hope, there's no life out there, and people are almost in so disbelief that of anyone who can create a life, that they just disown you as part of the chronic illness community.
Exactly what it was. It was like, I can't accept that you're capable of doing that, so it's easier for me to discredit every single thing you've done to get to this point than to accept that it's possible. But after I'd obviously spoke to you about it, I was having a bit of a wobble about it and just like, what is going on? I can't believe this message I've got. And just to have you, somebody who I thought, oh, Rosie's going to get it, like nobody else is going to understand if I try and share how fuming I am about this. And you said to me, like, and you'd said, that's such a win. Like, people are in like utter disbelief of what you're able of achieving, and like that's how you know you've won, because you've done basically the unthinkable.
Exactly. And I get so many people message me being like, I can't believe I found your page. Like, I've only seen negativity, and the right people will see it in the right way. But unfortunately, some people just can't, and they have to come to that decision. They have to make those shifts themselves, and hopefully with time more positivity will come to the chronic illness community. I really, really hope that it does. And hopefully more people will actually see that there is hope and you can live an extremely fulfilling life. The amount of pictures you sent me of like nights out, Harry Styles concerts, like trips away, going for massive walks and hikes, and
it is arguably though the best thing that has happened to me, because I get to do the, like, beforehand you think, oh, that's just part of living life, like everyone should be able to do that, and that's not the case. And I wouldn't have seen that previously. Like, people have to work for this, and it's not easy. And now all I want to do is kind of go out there and do the things that I get to do now. Like, it's not a right, you have to work for it and stuff. So to be able to be in that position now, I think I'm not going to not share this because somebody else might be offended by it. If anything, somebody else needs to see this. Like, I know how badly I needed to see that, and just to go, oh, thank God it's going to be okay. Because at that time, it didn't feel like it was ever going to be okay. Exactly. And off the back of those messages, whether it was right or wrong, I kind of took to Instagram again, almost to defend myself, like, because I just felt so, like, is this really how people feel? It's like I kind of needed the validation of how do people really feel about this, and just to remind people I've been in that position. I've been on the most intense medication like I've been on in my life,
which you are off completely now
for nearly a year, so it was July last year.
That's mad.
But again, I never thought I was gonna come off that medication, and that was okay at the time to think, if I need this then to kind of live some sort of life, then fine. But to come off it now and be like, it's so full circle, like everything was okay. But just to remind people, like, I have been in a wheelchair, I've been completely bedbound, I've been on the medication, I have been signed off work. Like I said to you, I used to have to wake up hours before work, sit in my bed, take my medication, wait hours before I could then shuffle to the bathroom to have to lie down in the shower because I couldn't stand up, and then go to work, get the lift, get comments about being in the lift. sit at my desk. And by the time I'd sat at my desk, I was so exhausted.
Like you'd done a full day's
my
of
team
work.
leader would say to me, like, I'd be sat there and I'd be watching my watch and my heart would be like 185. She'd be like, just go home. You look awful. Just go and rest. So to kind of be in the position I'm in now, I'm not going to hold back sharing what I can do now. So yeah, having put that out there and reminded people I have been there. Like, I know it's easy to look at my page and think, I don't know what it's like. I do know what it's like. And I wake up every morning and I remember what it was like.
And I do everything in my power to make sure I don't get there again.
And to be fair, I was met with a lot of love. After, I think I had like over 50 messages when I put that story on saying, I can't believe somebody would ever say that to you. And like, I was met with a lot of love. So it definitely reminded me I'm on the right path and things are good.
Yeah, I can vouch the amount of people who have messaged me off the back of being like, I just love Alex's page. Even if I share something of you right now, like I get 4 or 5 messages just being like, I love Alex.
But still, even now, it still feels like just as vulnerable to share the good things as it did the bad things, the days when I was crying and I was like in the wheelchair and things. Because then I thought, I'm not going to be believed that I'm this sick. Now when I post, I think, I'm not going to be believed that I was ever that sick. And now I'm on the opposite side of it. But I think what people don't realise is, yes, I'm here now, but nothing is guaranteed. Just because my health has improved, it doesn't mean that's me for life now. Nothing bad is ever going to happen to me. I'm not going to get bad days. Like, if I stopped going to the gym, if I stopped the training, if I went back into old eating patterns or my sleep went out the window again, anything like that, it would be so quick.
Very easy to spiral.
It would be so quick that I would end up back in that place again. Like, it is a full-time job on top of everything else that we do, and it's not guaranteed now. Just because I am better and I have come off the medication, it would be very easy to end up back in that position.
Exactly. Well, thank you. I think that's been a very, very insightful conversation. I know so many people are going to be happy to hear the conversation. Really, really, really appreciate you being here. So, yeah, thank you so much. And please like, subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you on the next one.